The courtroom hallway was unusually quiet that bright spring morning, filled with soft daylight pouring through the tall windows. Lawyers hurried past with folders in their hands, families sat on wooden benches waiting for their names to be called, and somewhere in the distance a child laughed without knowing that lives could change forever in a single moment. Then Ethan Carter looked up from the divorce papers in his trembling hands and saw his wife, Amelia Brooks, slowly walking toward the courtroom. At first, everything seemed ordinary. But within seconds, his heartbeat stopped. Beneath her loose blue maternity dress was a clearly visible 7-month pregnancy. His fingers loosened, the papers slipped to the polished floor, and for the first time in nearly a year, he realized the woman he thought he knew had been carrying not only unbearable pain, but also the child he had dreamed of becoming a father to. Before we continue, if you believe in kindness, forgiveness, and second chances, please like this video, share it with someone who believes love deserves another chance, leave a comment, and subscribe to Little Kindness Tales for more emotional stories that touch the heart. Just 11 months earlier, Ethan and Amelia had been the kind of couple everyone admired. They were never wealthy, but they laughed often, shared homemade dinners, and dreamed about buying a small white house surrounded by flowers. Ethan worked as an architect while Amelia taught music at a neighborhood elementary school. Their lives seemed simple, yet beautifully complete. But sometimes the strongest relationships are not broken by hatred. They are broken by silence. Ethan buried himself in work after his company faced financial trouble, believing long hours would save their future. Amelia quietly struggled with repeated miscarriages that left her emotionally exhausted. Neither wanted to burden the other with more pain, so both carried their heartbreak alone until loneliness quietly replaced love. Weeks became months. Their conversations became shorter. Their smiles disappeared. Nights that were once filled with laughter turned into silent dinners where only the ticking kitchen clock filled the room. Friends assumed everything was fine because neither of them complained. They stopped taking weekend walks, stopped celebrating anniversaries, and eventually stopped asking each other if everything was all right. They were living in the same house while feeling like strangers. By the time Ethan suggested counseling, Amelia believed they had already drifted too far apart. When she signed the divorce papers several months later, she cried alone in her parked car before driving away without looking back. What Ethan never knew was that only a week after leaving their home, Amelia fainted while organizing music sheets in her classroom. Doctors discovered she was finally expecting a healthy baby after years of disappointment. The pregnancy was already progressing well, but they also warned her that stress could threaten both her health and the baby's. Standing outside the hospital with tears running down her face, Amelia faced an impossible decision. She wanted to tell Ethan immediately, but every memory of their painful final months convinced her that he deserved freedom rather than another emotional burden. She convinced herself he had already moved on, and she chose silence, believing it was an act of kindness even though it slowly broke her heart every single day. Meanwhile, Ethan tried convincing everyone, including himself, that divorce was the right decision. He rented a tiny apartment near his office, worked even longer hours, and filled every empty evening with overtime. Yet every time he walked past a toy store, every time he saw a father holding a child's tiny hand, he felt an emptiness he could never explain. His co-workers noticed he smiled less. His sister often asked why he looked so tired, but he always answered that work was exhausting. The truth was much deeper. He had lost not only his marriage but also the future he once imagined so clearly. The judge scheduled one final appearance before officially ending their marriage. Ethan believed it would simply be another painful formality. Amelia nearly canceled the hearing several times because hiding her pregnancy was becoming impossible. Loose clothing no longer concealed the gentle curve of her stomach. Every step reminded her that a tiny life depended on her courage. Yet she decided to attend because she believed both of them deserved closure, even if it shattered what remained of their hearts. The courtroom fell strangely silent as she entered. Ethan stared without blinking. Memories flooded his mind all at once, the countless nights they prayed for a child, the nursery designs they had secretly planned, the tiny baby shoes they once bought during happier days. His eyes filled with tears before he even realized he was crying. Nothing around him mattered anymore. Not the judge. Not the lawyers. Not the documents waiting to be signed. Only one question echoed through his mind. How had he not known? Amelia looked exhausted but peaceful. Pregnancy had softened her face, yet sadness still rested behind her gentle eyes. Months of carrying both a child and overwhelming loneliness had changed her completely. She wasn't angry anymore. She wasn't seeking revenge. She simply looked like someone who had survived a long storm and no longer had the strength to fight. The judge noticed the emotional tension immediately and quietly postponed the proceedings for 1 hour, encouraging both of them to speak privately before making a life-changing decision. They walked outside into the warm sunshine, where blooming trees surrounded a small garden beside the courthouse. The peaceful setting felt almost unreal compared to the emotional storm inside their hearts. For the first time in nearly a year, they truly looked at each other. Ethan saw not the woman who had left him, but the woman who had silently carried unimaginable burdens alone. Amelia saw not the distant husband consumed by work, but the man whose eyes still held the same kindness she had fallen in love with years before. The truth slowly unfolded. Ethan admitted that every late night at the office had been driven by fear of losing their home, not by a lack of love. Amelia confessed that every miscarriage had quietly convinced her she was failing as a wife, even though Ethan had never blamed her once. They both realized that neither betrayal nor cruelty had destroyed their marriage. It had been fear, silence, and two broken hearts trying to protect each other in the wrong ways. As the afternoon sunlight painted soft shadows across the courthouse garden, Ethan gently knelt before Amelia without caring who was watching. Tears rolled freely down his face as he placed one trembling hand near her stomach, overwhelmed by the tiny heartbeat growing inside. For months he had believed fatherhood was a dream forever lost. Now that dream stood only inches away, hidden beneath the woman he still loved. Amelia quietly allowed his hand to remain there. At that exact moment, the baby kicked gently. Ethan froze again, then smiled through tears unlike anything he had ever experienced. It was the first time he had ever felt his child move. Every regret, every sleepless night, every painful memory suddenly gained a new purpose. The future was not gone. It had simply been waiting for honesty. Over the following weeks, the divorce remained paused while both of them committed to rebuilding trust instead of pretending nothing had happened. They attended counseling together, not because love had disappeared, but because they finally understood that love alone cannot survive without communication. Ethan reduced his workload, choosing family over endless overtime. Amelia slowly allowed herself to believe she no longer had to carry every burden by herself. Healing was not immediate. Some days old fears returned. Some conversations ended in tears. But unlike before, neither walked away. Months later, on a beautiful clear morning filled with birdsong and bright blue skies, Amelia gave birth to a healthy baby girl named Hope. As Ethan held his daughter for the first time, he realized miracles rarely arrive without first passing through seasons of heartbreak. Looking across the hospital room at Amelia smiling through exhausted tears, he silently thanked life for giving them one final opportunity they almost threw away. Their story spread quietly through friends and family, reminding everyone that many relationships do not end because love disappears. They end because pain remains unspoken. Ethan and Amelia learned that courage is not pretending everything is fine. Courage is telling the truth before silence grows louder than love. If this story touched your heart and reminded you of the power of forgiveness and second chances, please like this video, share it with your loved ones, and subscribe to Little Kindness Tales so more people can experience stories that inspire hope. Special request: before we finish, please leave a comment and tell us, do you believe one honest conversation can save a relationship before it's too late? As Ethan watched little Hope sleeping peacefully beside Amelia under the warm afternoon sunlight, he understood that the happiest endings are rarely perfect. They are earned through humility, forgiveness, patience, and the courage to begin again. Some signatures can end a marriage, but one simple moment of truth can begin an entirely new life. And on the very day they came to finalize their divorce, they discovered the greatest blessing they had almost lost forever, a family worth fighting for.